In this assignment, you're going to look at how weather differs across 6 cities in the United States. And also in this assignment, you're going to learn how to manipulate data a little bit when they're not in the best format. So a lot of data come in a format that's not really conducive to analysis, and this is one of them because in this case, ideally, we'd have all this weather data for all 6 cities in the same place. But instead, what I was able to extract put the data into different sheets. So I'm going to show you how to stack all of that data, and then we'll look at it, and then we'll analyze it. So the first thing is that we're really going to use 2 variables in each of these sheets. There's a date variable, and there's the mean temperature, and we want to get rid of everything else. And I can do that by highlighting the column, the letter above the column, right-clicking and deleting. Here, I can select all the way to the end with the Control End option and delete. And I can do the same thing with the rest of the data. So again, I'm deleting all variables but the date and the mean temperature. Careful not to keep the max temperature, actually the mean temperature. Do that with each one. Once you've done it a few times, it should go quickly. And this is just supposed to make it easier to manipulate these data by getting rid of all the extraneous variables we're not going to use. Okay, so now you should have 6 worksheets with 2 variables each, the date, and which in this case it has EST for Eastern Standard Time, but it doesn't matter, and the mean temperature variable. Then I'm going to add a 3rd variable in each of these. It's going to be equal to the city, because when we stack all these on top of each other, we want to know which of these dates and temperatures comes from which city. So here, I'll add a city variable, the city in the header, and then the name of the city, and then I line my cursor up with the lower right-hand corner and double-click, and it copies it all the way down to the bottom for all 366 days, or 365 days, I should say, not a leap year, and do the same thing here, the name of the city, and then double-click the lower right-hand corner to copy down. I do that with each one of these, like that. Then once you get the hang of this, it should go quickly. Okay, so now I have 3 variables for each city, the date, mean temperature, and the city. Now we need to stack these variables. So I'm going to go to the very first city, New York, put my cursor there. I'm going to go to Los Angeles, and I'm going to highlight just the data, not the names of the variables, but just the data. I highlight the whole thing, press Control C, and oops. I'm working on a Mac remotely, so this is a little bit more complicated than it will be for you, but basically should be 1/2010. So I'm Control C and Control V copying the data into the first worksheet. Oops. Again, this will be a little bit more cumbersome for me than for you because I'm working remotely from a Mac. But you have, then we've got data now from New York and LA. And I'm going to put Chicago in there. Again, I highlight the data, all the data, copy it, Control C, copy it down. Go to the end, go to the next city, copy it down, and so forth. And why are we doing this? The point is, you really have to have all the variables lined up in order to make the analysis, to do the analysis in a sort of simple way. Otherwise, you can do it without doing this, but it just makes it a lot easier in the end to have it like this, standard format. All the dates in the same place, all the temperatures in the same place, and all the city names in the same place. Okay, so now once I have the data like so, I can rename this EST. I'll just call it date. Okay, I have the mean temperature and I have the city. Now I press Control T, to create a data table, right? It was headers, right? And now simple data table with 3 variables. I can summarize with pivot table, like so. And now I want to get a number of statistics about temperature for each of the cities. So I put the mean temperature in the values, because that's what I'm going to calculate. I want to get the average, and I want to get it by city, so I drag and drop city to the rows, like that. So now already I have average temperatures by city. You can see this would have been harder if all the data were in separate worksheets, but it's pretty simple. I'm going to round up to the nearest degree. I don't want just the average though. I also want a measure of the amount of variation in temperature. Obviously that matters a lot, because if you have, you could have 2 cities with the same average temperature, but one of them is really cold for half the year and really hot for the other half of the year, while the other city is just a moderate temperature the whole year. I can do that by dragging and dropping mean temperature again into the values, and then changing this to summarize by, and I have to select more options, and you can come down here and select standard deviation. STD DEV stands for standard deviation, like that. Okay, and we can see, you can see here that Chicago has the highest standard deviation of temperature. What does that mean? That means that Chicago, the temperatures are extremely variable in Chicago. Chicago has hot summers and cold winters. Meanwhile, LA is pretty, stays within a much narrower range, only 7 standard deviation. We also want to add minimum and maximum mean temperatures. So I drag mean temperature again twice to the values, and then I change this to one of them to minimum and one of them to maximum. And so now I have the basic ingredients of the table. I can pretty this up a little bit, clean it up with the standard deviation, minimum, max, like that, and then give it a reasonable and descriptive title, right? We can call it comparison of average daily temperatures in 2010 across 6 cities in the United States. And so there I go. You can also change the format just a little bit here to make it a little bit less space, but that's up to you.